hurry up, come on in, close the door, close it quick. Did anybody see you? Was anybody following you? Lock that door. Well, the 11 disciples were gathered together in an upper room, and they were scared. Now, let's be real, they had every reason to be scared. After all, they've been following Jesus every step of the way for the last 3 years, and now he'd been betrayed, and he'd been on trial, and he'd been condemned, and he'd been crucified, dead, and buried. Wow, it was only a matter of time till someone else put 2 and 2 together and came looking for them. How much longer before they too would meet their own deaths? Oh yeah, they heard this morning those women had come and told them that the tomb was empty. And then just a little while ago, the 2 from Emmaus had come running back to Jerusalem to tell them that they had met the risen Jesus along the road and eaten with him at the table as he broke bread. But let's be real. This is the real world. Now, this is all post-Easter. God's decisive victory over sin and death and fear and all that threatens to divide or separate us from God's love. And you would think everyone had heard the good news and they were celebrating and everything was hunky-dory. But that doesn't square with what we see in the Gospels. In Luke's Gospel, the 24th chapter, picking up on the 16th verse, right where we left off last week, the disciples are huddled behind locked doors out of fear of their own lives. When who should appear and be there right with them? It was Jesus. Yes, through or behind the locked door. And Jesus said to them, "What are you all troubled about? What's all this fear and this doubt? What's going on?" And then Jesus said, "Didn't you know that all this must happen?" Now that little word "must" in Greek is a very important word, just 3 letters. Transliterated, it would be D-E-I. And it's a word that means in God's imperative. And so in the midst of all that had happened, all that pain and suffering, the betrayal, the rejection, all of it, God was at work. In fact, Jesus reminds them God was at work bringing repentance and forgiveness for all people. Now, let's be honest. It wouldn't take us very long to come up with a pretty exhaustive list of things that we're afraid of. There's plenty of fear to go around, maybe even especially right now. But there are a few things that come to my mind as I imagine this time of these folks behind locked doors. First of all, Jesus is right there with them. But notice he didn't take away that fear. He didn't tell them, "Oh, you don't have anything to worry about." He was with them in the middle of their fears. And then it was not some spiffed up version of Jesus. Jesus was there bearing the wounds that he had, the wounds of the world with him. And then even in his presence, even in his conversation, he was reminding them in their fear, "Don't you know that even now God is at work in a powerful way? For nothing can stand in the way of God's good purposes." Maybe it's a word for us in all the dangers that we face right now, this week, in this time. For we are not alone. Jesus bears in his own being the wounds of our world and is translating them all into something that is of God's purposes. Blessings to you.